So, again, thank you so much for coming and for your time. You already have introduced yourself. One of the reasons I have had this presentation for different programs was because I'm a new hire at GSPS to support your career development. I wanted to use this presentation also as an excuse to go and give the chance to all our students to match the face and name together. So when you talk about like career development, Sina, Safayi, who is that guy, right? When you grab a cup of coffee at GSPS, you see the bald guy walking around, you know who I am now. So a little history, my background. I was born and raised in one of the magnificent 7 countries. You hear in the news these days, Iran. I got my DVM from Shiraz University in Iran. In 2004, I went to Denmark, University of Copenhagen, to get my PhD in animal physiology, lactation physiology actually. And meanwhile, I did 2 sabbaticals, one Aarhus University in Denmark, and the other one, University of Arizona in Tucson. I also passed graduate courses in Germany and Sweden. When I was in Tucson, it was my first visit to the United States. So I said, well, I need to go back and do postdoc in the US. So I returned after doing a short period of postdoc at the University of Copenhagen. I returned to the United States to do my first postdoc at Clemson University, South Carolina, mammary gland biology. And after 2 years, I went to Iowa State University vet school to work in neurophysiology / kinematics. I was there for 3.5 years. Meanwhile, while I was in Iran, in Denmark, in the United States, I have been doing extensively administrative work in terms of supporting graduate students and postdocs. Based on my administrative activities, I was recruited by a Japanese university, a newly founded university in Japan, Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. And I started the first postdoctoral career development program in Asia. While I was there, I was recruited by GSPS last August. So I started like this January to hopefully stay here for the next years to come to support your career development. Today, I would like to talk about why it's necessary to do career planning. I briefly talk about the existing job market and the graduate education outline. Also, I will briefly talk about individual development plans, what resources are available to you, and we do a brief exercise together as well. Does this look familiar to you? So, it's you up here going through scientific training, right? You have your mentor. Then after graduation, either you do a postdoc or not, and then you get recruited by academia or industry or other careers for your next chapter. Does this look familiar to you? Have you been in this presentation before? No, okay, good. So this is now called a traditional model, and I'll tell you why. Starting with the stats, so this is how PhDs in life sciences, like the stats on PhD life sciences job perspective immediately after graduation. So as you see in the United States, 1 out of 3 don't have anything lined up at graduation. It's much better at our institute, GSPS. I'm going to talk about our stats as well. So in 90s, the main recruiting sector was academia, while in the 21st century, it's not academia anymore. It's the private sector, which is considered as the main recruiting sector for PhD graduates in biomedical sciences. As you see, we have been producing so many PhD students, but not opening as many faculty positions. So this is the academia. Even if you look at, if you have a closer look at those like 5,000 numbers, you see that the part-time faculty openings are increasing while the full-time tenure track faculty openings are decreasing. If you look at stats, either in Europe or United States, 80% of PhD graduates would like to end up being in academia. Yet, 1 out of 3 in Europe, 2 out of 3 in the United States succeed to secure a postdoc position. And when it comes to the tenure track position, it's 1% in UK, 4% in Germany, and about 10% in the United States. About half of them are also struggling with part-time and instructor positions. The other thing that we tend to forget is the systematic inequality and hierarchy in the US hiring system when it comes to faculty positions. So the name of school matters. So, how do we adapt to this layout of the job market? It all starts with NIH. That was the traditional model, and now it's called BEST model. Instead of one mentor, now you have a group of mentors. You need to recruit mentors during your planning process. You need to use career as well as professional development opportunities. You also need to use experiential learning opportunities like internships. That's what the other students in the other schools do. And after graduation, you're the one competing with those students. So the more opportunities during your grad school you use, the more competent you become after graduation. And nowadays, it's not academia. Academia is not considered as the main recruiting sector. There are like many other sectors you could get recruited by after your graduation with your PhD. So, it's a good question. What do I want to be when I grow up? You should ask this question constantly, no matter at what stage of your career you are. That helps you to grow in your career. So, but the question now at the grad school is, what's next? Where should I start? How should I plan? Answering your question, there is a tool called MyIDP. Probably you have been through this during your orientation boot camp. It's AAAS tool, My Individual Development Plan. So you create a free username and password, and then it works based on different steps, starting with self-assessment. So you assess yourself based on your skills, interests, and values, and then it helps you to narrow down your career options, and you take top 5, top 10 career options on the list, and then you start like exploring those careers, and based on the assessment you have of yourself, your skills, your interests, you start creating a plan, and then implementation of plan, like recruiting the mentors, and then ending your plan with like improving your interviewing skills, networking, job hunting, putting application package together, and so forth. So, 2 mistakes we all tend to do. The first one is getting confused between the real self and our ideal self. So, it's been a while. For example, I wanted to start my own startup. But do I have all the skills and qualifications? So having a true self-assessment helps you to close the gap between your real self and your ideal self. The other mistake we tend to do is getting caught into iceberg illusion. So we think that, when I was a grad student, I'm like, that loser had only 2 publications. He got a faculty position. So why can't I? I have 3 publications. So there are like too many other factors involved in the success of people, no matter what career path they end up getting dedications, persistency, failure. So it's always good to remind yourself of those hidden factors in other people's success and in yours as well, and consider them in your planning. So, self-assessment. You have done this before. Tell me, like, about your skills, like what skills you have as a grad student. In the microphone. In the microphone. Okay. Tearing it on, just tell me skills.
Time management and project planning.
Awesome. Great. Time management, project planning.
Writing, eventually, hopefully.
Writing.
Professional writing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah? Is it on?
They're probably scientific writing.
Scientific writing. Yes. Excellent. So what about your interest? What excites you? You mentioned one thing. What excites you to come to grad school every day? Go to your labs and do stuff. What are your interests?
I guess just like scientific curiosity in general, you know, trying to sort of push the envelope of what we know and what we can do.
Perfect. Any other?
I'm really interested in the translational aspects of making discoveries that will actually be applicable in the clinic.
Excellent. You're like the science you do, the questions you answer, all are exciting to you. So that's great. What about values? What do you value most? Like work-life balance, for example, in your future job, right? So some might say, I need work-life balance. Some might say, no, I don't care, I can handle stress. Money matters to me, I want higher salary, right? So different values. Some might say, money doesn't bring happiness. Some might say, yes, money doesn't bring happiness, but it's much more comfortable to cry in a Porsche than on a bicycle, right? So different people, different perspective, different values. Also, it applies to skills and interests. But the overlap of all these three circles, that's where your ideal career is. So you need to, by doing that assessment, you narrow down the career options this way to your ideal career. So I borrowed this slide and the next one from the dean's presentation for the new students. You probably have seen this in their presentation. When you come here, they talk about the careers you can end up getting after graduating from the GSPS. So they're like, sky is the limit. There are like too many options you can choose, too many career paths you can choose after graduation. So the next step after narrowing down the career options is career exploration. Now I need to know what those career paths are, right? So we have too many resources on our website you can use. NIH has 2 websites, BEST program, and also their actual training office have like too many videos. Duke Postdoc Association on YouTube, they have a channel. And also on that AAAS My IDP, you can find so many resources, books, links, articles, and websites you can explore to read and study more about like those career paths in case you don't know much. We are also planning to to create the same archive. We started from yesterday. We had someone came talked about like how he started like his own startup in Texas Medical Center and so forth. So keep an eye on our website. Now the exercise. So what I want you to do is to score from 1 to 6, your interest slash skills based on the level of enjoyment. 1 as the highest and 6 as the lowest. Don't flip the second page, please, till you're done with the first one. Let me know when you're done with the first. Excellent. Anyone wants more time? You need more time? Yeah. Okay, take your time. Okay. So, if you flip the other page, the first 3 top choices. So your choice number 1, 2, 3. Just look at what career options you could have based on your self-assessment that you enjoy, you're skilled, you think you're skilled for it, and also you enjoy doing it. Of course, we don't expect you to decide about your next career chapter after doing a 5-minute exercise, but it gives you an impression of how helpful it could be to use self-assessment tools. Any questions? So this is the stats for GSBS. As you see, this is the stats for GSBS 5 years after graduation. So GSBS alumni ended up getting all these career paths. About 20-something% are not shown here because all of those career paths had a share of below 2%. So if you do a calculation, you see there are like about 30 different career paths GSBS alumni ended up getting into. So again, sky is the limit. You can be whoever you want to be. It's just a matter of happiness, and if you find yourself a good fit for that career path. This is the landscape in United States, 2014. for a PhD degree in biology. Average years like 7 years to finish it. They're like 30-something% dropout. GSPS is doing much better. And after graduation, some are still doing postdocs. I think it's six years after completion of PhD. So 6 years after biology PhDs in the United States got their PhD, some of them are still doing postdocs. Some ended up doing research in industry. Some ended up doing research in government. And some tenured or tenure track faculty, and some non-tenure track faculty. So unemployment rate is higher than before, but the two sections that I was surprised seeing was like 25% the some of these two PhDs in biology end up doing non-science jobs or non-research science related jobs. So again, sky is the limit. You can be anywhere in this pool if you make a plan. And your first year, second year students, you have like 4-5+ years time to plan for this. To get to any of these sections, most of the career paths, you don't need to do a postdoc. So many people do postdocs because they didn't figure it out. They didn't have a good planning during their grad school. So don't waste your time. Make a great plan and end up where you want to be.
How many people actually hire straight out of grad school? Like a lot of people in different career paths want to do postdoc.
Once more and in the microphone, please. Microphone? Yeah.
A lot of different career paths still want you to do a postdoc
Okay.
before they'll hire you.
No, not. That's not the case. No, that's not the case. And I hear this from many grad students, and my impression is that in the grad school, grad students unfortunately mimic each other. That's not the case.
But I've heard people speak that have come here from like industry and stuff and academia and say that a lot of people want to be a postdoc.
If that's the case, it's because the grad students haven't collected enough of evidence during their grad school to show that they have the skills necessary for that position in industry. That's why I'm saying if you plan now, do what you're supposed to do during your postdoc, during your grad school, then you save your time not doing a postdoc. So many postdocs do postdoc to improve the skills necessary, for example, for industry, because they didn't improve those skills. They don't have evidence on their CV during their grad school. Does that make sense? But that's not the case. I have discussed it with others in the grad school as well, and we all agreed it's not the case. And I don't know who has come here. Andy, do you have any inputs on this?
So it varies. It really varies. So there are some companies, for example, in the biotech, where you do need a postdoc, and they won't look at you without. There are other companies, for example, where you don't. They want to take someone in that's at a level just having completed their PhD and get them into the culture of the company and how they do things, rather than you kind of spending a few extra years learning something else. If it's a company and you're going to be working on a project with animals and you don't have that experience from your PhD studies, then you might need to get that experience somewhere else. On the other hand, if you do have that experience, you've made a bunch of animals as a grad student, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for you. So it kind of depends on the experience you have and what the fit is with the place. I don't think there's kind of a cookie cutter thing like one size fits all, like you have to have a postdoc to get a job in, at this particular company.
But, yeah.
As a rule.
And it's way less common outside of academia. Of course, if you want to stay in academia, again, it's not necessary. We have graduate students. I'm meeting with one of them next week. He has got 5 interviews without doing a postdoc. He's graduating in May, right? 5 phone interviews, 2 on-site interviews for faculty positions in United States, right? So he has collected what's necessary for a faculty position during the grad school. So even in academia, there are exceptions, right? But it's common to do a postdoc in academia, but it's not as common to do a postdoc in industry. And of course, as Andy said, it depends on what position it is. What, like for example, if it's an industry job in a large company or a startup or a medium-sized company, what part of United States, it depends on so many factors, but it's not as common. So, and I have heard it's like they say, no, you have to have a postdoc. No, it's not as common. So now you narrowed down the career options, you explored those careers, now you need to craft a plan. But a plan, a wish, a goal without a plan is just a wish, sorry. So your plan should be specific. For example, I want to end up staying in academia. One of the tickets to stay in academia for me to get to the other side is to have my fellowship, to have grantsmanship. So I don't have any experience in that. I want to apply for one fellowship during my grad school. One fellowship, I can measure it. The deadline for NIH is like 10 months from now, and I can meet the deadline, attainable. It's relevant to my career goal. I want to stay in academia, so I need to put an application together, and time related. So it is within the timeline of my grad school. And even if I don't succeed to get a grant, it's considered a success for me to just learn the process how to put an application package together. Then I can try next year or the next year. So, in other words, the secret sauce is to plan smart. In business, they have something called SCurve. They call it business life cycle. So it starts with infancy, expansion, and ends with maturity. So let's assume it's a PhD life cycle. So you start with your enrollment, rotations, you're figuring out what program you want to join, and then you develop skills you need for your next chapter. You go through courses to get your PhD, and then your graduation. It takes courage to jump from one S to another. So you have to interrupt yourself. You have to have enough of courage to interrupt yourself. And these disruptions, after these disruptions, that's when you can claim that you are on your career growth. These S's go till end of your career path, but they become smaller. The more experienced you become, these S's become smaller and smaller. And talking about postdocs, of course, if you haven't developed the skills that you needed, you sometimes stay flat. Your title is a postdoc, but you're doing the same thing you've been doing as a grad student. Maybe on a different project, and you're happy you're publishing 2 papers a year. If you go to different labs, you will see some of these postdocs. That doesn't get you anywhere. So if you start in advance, you can develop those skills. You don't need to do a postdoc to go further. Of course, there are career paths that postdoc, you need more than a graduate school time to develop some skills to get to those chapters. Yes, postdoc is necessary. But don't stay flat on your S, just being happy that you're a postdoc. If you're doing a postdoc, it should be another S. It's never late. Start today. These are my contact information. We have a website. Utilize the resources we have on the website. We have a LinkedIn career development page. Please join that group as well. If you want to meet with me, please contact me directly and then make an appointment. We have self-assessment tools available other than my IDP. We have like Myers-Briggs personality assessment tool. We have StrengthsFinder assessment tool. And if you want to get involved with volunteer activities to organize something and like put your organizational skills in practice, just contact me and we can take it from there. And always lead calendar. Lead calendar. This is the calendar where we put all our events. Also, other schools, institutes in the Texas Medical Center, they submit the events which are open to our grad students into our calendar as well. Regularly check lead calendar. Check essentials, the newsletter we sent every Thursday. The link, there's a link to lead calendar there, and also announcements for our upcoming events. So, and we have an event next Thursday. About job hunting in industry and a workshop on how to talk yourself into a job, which would be very helpful for you in terms of presentation skills, interviewing skills, and networking skills.